In the pursuit of truth, clarity is essential. We have stripped away the narrative to show you unfiltered, unedited reality. Witness raw, compelling footage from the front lines of justice, allowing the actual events to speak entirely for themselves.
Ma'am, you need to leave this area, now.
On what grounds, officer? This is a public terminal.
You don't belong here. You've been loitering. Security concern.
Loitering isn't a crime. What specific law am I violating?
Don't play lawyer with me.
The voice
Bag
cut
down.
through the
Turn
terminal
around.
like a blade. Ma'am, you need to leave this area, now. The woman stopped mid-step, her rolling suitcase tilting slightly as the crowd surged around her. It was 8:12 a.m. at the International Departures Terminal, the kind of morning where every sound felt amplified. Boarding announcements echoed overhead. Coffee machines hissed. A crying child wailed somewhere behind her. The air smelled like burned espresso and disinfectant. She turned slowly, calm, controlled. Her eyes met the officer's without flinching. On what grounds? The officer was already too close. Uniform pressed badge-polished hand hovering near his radio like a reflex. You're loitering in a restricted zone. You've been here too long. You were asked to move. Asked by who, she said, her voice steady, almost surgical. I'm waiting for my team. My flight board's in 30 minutes. The officer's jaw tightened. People were starting to notice now. A businessman paused his phone call. A woman near the charging station lifted her camera just a little higher. I'm not going to argue with you, the officer said. You don't belong here. Either you leave voluntarily or I escort you out. The words hung there. You don't belong here. The woman inhaled slowly. She adjusted the strap of her carry-on. Her coat was tailored understated. No logos, no flash, just competence. Years of it. Officer, she said, I am asking you to articulate the legal reason you are ordering me to leave a public terminal. The officer laughed, short and sharp. Don't play games with me. You think using big words changes the fact that you're causing a security concern? What specific concern, she asked. What law am I violating? The crowd had grown thicker. A low murmur rolled through the terminal. Phones were out now. Not obvious, but present. Watching. The officer's face flushed. He leaned in, lowering his voice. This is your last warning. Step away from this area. Or what, she asked quietly. Or I detain you. There it was. The escalation, the point of no return. For a brief second, the woman's eyes flicked around the terminal. Cameras, witnesses, exits. She understood exactly where she was and what this could become. Her hands stayed visible. Still, I am not resisting, she said, but I am not leaving without cause. The officer reached for her arm. Sir, someone said from behind. She's not doing anything. That was when the officer snapped. Turn around. Place your bag on the ground. The suitcase hit the floor with a dull thud. The terminal seemed to slow. Sound stretched. The metallic click of handcuffs being pulled free. The smell of cold air rushing in from the sliding doors. As the officer moved closer, the woman spoke one last time, clear enough for every camera to hear. You are about to make a mistake that will follow you for the rest of your life. The officer didn't stop. The story pauses here right before everything collapses and rewinds. Long before the terminal, before the uniformed officer, before the word loitering was used like a weapon, the woman with the carry-on had built her life in places most Americans would never see. Her name was Danielle Brooks. She was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to a mother who worked double shifts as a nurse's aide, and a father who repaired HVAC units until his knees gave out. No connections, no shortcuts, just structure, discipline, and expectation. You finish what you start. You show up prepared. You never assume the system will be fair to you. Danielle learned that early. At 17, she earned a scholarship to a state university, commuting an hour each way to save money. While other students went home on weekends, she worked campus security at night. While they partied, she studied federal policy, international relations, and emergency management. She watched how power actually moved quietly through paperwork and protocols. After graduation, she joined the federal government at the lowest rung. An entry-level analyst, windowless offices, fluorescent lights. Endless reports no one noticed until something went wrong. She noticed everything. Within 5 years, she was deployed to border operations during a human trafficking surge. She coordinated with local law enforcement, who didn't want her there, federal agencies that talked past each other, and communities that distrusted all of them. She slept 4 hours a night. She learned how crises actually unfolded, not the way they looked in press briefings. Her supervisors noticed results, not noise. She moved up. Counter-terrorism coordination, disaster response planning, airport security oversight. Each promotion came with resistance that never had to be explained out loud. She learned to over-prepare because she was never allowed to just be competent. By 46, Danielle Brooks was appointed Regional Director of Homeland Security Operations, overseeing multiple transportation hubs, including the very terminal where she now stood, accused of not belonging. Her signature authorized emergency lockdowns. Her directives shaped security posture for millions of travelers. She never wore it on her sleeve. No entourage. No flashing credentials unless required. She believed authority should work quietly. That belief was about to cost her. Now rewind again. The officer. Officer Nathan Keller had been with airport security for 11 years. Solid evaluations. No terminations. No viral incidents. The kind of career that stayed comfortably unnoticed. But his file told a different story. 6 informal complaints over 4 years. All closed without action. Travelers described being singled out. Asked extra questions. Pressed harder. No single incident rose high enough to trigger discipline. Together, they formed a pattern no one wanted to name. Keller believed in instincts. He said it often. You can feel when something's off. Supervisors liked that phrasing. It sounded proactive. It sounded safe. What it really meant was unchecked bias dressed up as vigilance. He worked the same terminal, same shift every weekday morning. International departures. Pressure. Crowds. Authority without familiarity. He saw thousands of faces and sorted them quickly. Business class, tourist, crew, out of place. That last category mattered most to him. Earlier that morning, a colleague had joked about being understaffed. Keller had already been on edge. When he saw Danielle standing near the secure seating area, calm, observant, not rushing, something clicked in his mind. Too composed, too still. He didn't see a director coordinating with her team by text. He didn't see a woman who had signed off on his training protocols years earlier. He saw someone who didn't fit the mental image he trusted, and once that narrative formed, everything else bent around it. Credentials became suspicious. Questions became defiance. Calm became attitude. By the time he approached her, the decision had already been made. Back in the terminal, all of that history was invisible. All anyone could see was a black woman being told to leave a public space, and an officer convinced he was in control. Neither of them knew yet that this moment would expose everything that came before it. The terminal didn't erupt all at once. It tightened. People slowed their walking pace without stopping. Conversations dropped half a volume. The kind of attention that pretends not to look but misses nothing settled over the space. Officer Keller stood squared in front of Danielle now. His shoulders were rigid. His voice had shifted from performative authority to something sharper. "You've been given a lawful order," he said. "You are refusing to comply." Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't step back either. "I have asked you 3 times to state the statute or regulation I am violating," she said. "You have not answered once." "That matters." Keller gestured toward her coat. "What's in the bag?" "My personal belongings," she replied. "Laptop, documents, clothing. Then you won't mind opening it." "I do mind," she said. "Without probable cause or consent, you do not have the authority to search my property." That sentence landed differently. A man near the windows muttered, "She knows the law." A woman holding a boarding pass whispered to her partner, "This is wrong." Someone's phone camera rose higher. No flash, no commentary, just recording. Keller noticed. His eyes flicked to the phones, then back to Danielle. The power dynamic he thought he controlled was slipping. "You're being uncooperative," he said. "That alone is grounds for detention." "No, it is not," Danielle replied immediately. "Asking questions is not obstruction. Remaining calm is not resistance." She reached slowly into her coat pocket. Keller's hand snapped to his radio. "Don't move. I am retrieving identification," she said. "Exactly as you instructed earlier." She pulled out a leather credential holder and held it closed in her palm, not yet opening it. Her movements were deliberate, almost instructional. "Before I show you this," she said, "I am asking you again to call your supervisor." Keller didn't take the bait. He didn't want a supervisor. Not now. Not in front of witnesses. "I decide what happens here," he said, "not you." That was when the crowd shifted from passive to present. "Sir," a middle-aged man said, "I'm a lawyer. You should listen to her." Another voice, female, firm. "You need to explain why you're doing this." Keller turned toward the voices. "This is an active security situation. Step back." Danielle used the moment. She opened the credential holder. For half a second, no one could see what was inside but him. Then Keller's expression changed. Not fear. Not yet. Confusion. He stared at the seal, the title, the photograph. "This is fake," he said too quickly. Danielle closed it again. "It is not," she said. "And you know how to verify it." The murmurs grew louder. Phones zoomed in. Someone said Homeland Security out loud, uncertain but loud enough to carry. Keller felt the walls closing. He had escalated too far to retreat cleanly. Backing down now would mean admitting he never had cause in the first place. He made the decision that ends careers. "Turn around," he said. "Place your hands behind your back." The words echoed harder than he intended. Danielle didn't argue. She didn't plead. She simply nodded once. "I am complying under protest," she said clearly. "This detention is unlawful." Her suitcase remained on the floor. Her hands moved slowly behind her back. The click of the cuffs cut through the terminal noise like a dropped glass. A woman gasped. Someone swore under their breath. The camera phones did not stop. As Keller secured the cuffs, Danielle turned her head just enough to look at the nearest lens. "Remember this moment," she said, "every second." The crowd knew then. Whatever this was, it had gone too far. The moment the cuffs closed, time fractured. The terminal noise fell away in layers. Boarding calls blurred into a low hum. Footsteps slowed. Even the air felt heavier, colder against the skin. The metal around Danielle's wrists was tight, intentionally so. Not enough to draw blood, but enough to remind her who believed they had control. Officer Keller guided her forward with a hand on her elbow. Not rough, not gentle, performative. Every step echoed on the polished floor. "Walk," she did. Her posture stayed straight, head level, eyes forward. She refused to give him the image he expected. Phones followed, silent, relentless. As they moved towards the secondary security office, someone called out, "This is illegal." Another voice answered. She showed him credentials. A third voice, shaky, said, "I got all of this, Itumaki." Keller did not respond. His jaw was locked. His breathing had changed, shorter, faster. Inside the small security corridor, the air smelled like recycled ventilation and disinfectant wipes. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The door closed behind them with a hollow thud that sounded louder than it should have. Danielle was seated in a plastic chair bolted to the floor, hands still cuffed. Keller stood across from her, arms crossed now, radio clipped to his shoulder, chirping intermittently with routine updates from the terminal outside. Normal operations, flights boarding, life continuing. For the first time since the cuffs went on, Keller hesitated. "What exactly is your role?" he asked. Danielle looked at him. "I have already identified myself," she said. "You chose not to verify." "That is not an answer," he snapped. She leaned back as far as the cuffs allowed. "Then do what you should have done 10 minutes ago," she replied. "Call your supervisor. Call headquarters. Run the credential number. Every second you delay compounds the violation." Keller turned away. He paced once, twice. He picked up a clipboard he didn't need. Put it down. In the silence, doubt crept in. He replayed the moment in his head. The seal. The title. The confidence. Not defiant. Certain. The kind that didn't come from bluffing. Outside the room, raised voices filtered through the door. A supervisor had arrived. Someone was asking questions. Someone else was already reviewing footage. Keller swallowed. Danielle closed her eyes briefly, not in fear, in calculation. She was already documenting. Timestamps, statements, the precise sequence of commands, the exact phrasing used. Loitering. You don't belong here. Fake. She had written after action reports in war rooms with less clarity than this. The door opened. A senior supervisor stepped in, badge, heavy expression, tight. He took in the cuffs, the posture, the stillness. "Officer Keller," he said, "step outside." Keller hesitated, then obeyed. The door closed again. For the first time since the encounter began, Danielle was alone. She exhaled slowly. The injustice had reached its peak. The public humiliation. The unlawful detention. The assumption that power could be exercised without consequence. What came next would determine everything. The door reopened with a different weight. Two people entered this time. The first was the supervisor Danielle had already seen in the hallway. Mid-50s, careful posture. The second man wore no visible weapon, no tactical vest. Just a dark suit and access badge clipped at the waist, and the kind of stillness that comes from authority exercised behind closed doors. His eyes went straight to the cuffs, then to Danielle's face, then back to the supervisor. Why is she restrained? The supervisor cleared his throat. Officer Keller detained her for refusal to comply with a security directive. Credentials were presented but not verified. The man in the suit stepped closer. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He reached out and gently took the credential holder Danielle still had tucked against her palm. "May I?" Danielle nodded once. He opened it. The room changed. He didn't ask questions. He didn't squint. He didn't debate authenticity. He recognized it immediately. The seal, the numbering, the formatting that never appeared in public examples. He closed the holder and looked up slowly. "You need to remove the cuffs, now." The supervisor didn't hesitate. He reached for the key. The metal released with a soft click that sounded almost apologetic. Danielle flexed her wrists once. No dramatics, no complaint, just circulation returning. The man in the suit finally spoke to her directly. Director Brooks. I apologize for what has occurred. The words landed. Director. The supervisor's face drained of color. Officer Keller, still just outside the door, heard it through the crack. Director of Homeland Security Operations for this region. Silence filled the room like pressure. The supervisor stammered, Sir, I was not informed. That much is clear, the man replied. He turned back to Danielle. Your flight. Boarding in 12 minutes, she said. He nodded. It will wait. Outside the room, Keller was brought in. He stopped short when he saw Danielle uncuffed, standing now, shoulders squared, her coat straightened. The power dynamic he had relied on was gone, replaced by something immovable. You ordered her removed from a public terminal, the man said calmly. On what authority? Keller opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. She was behaving suspiciously. Define suspicious. She was standing in a restricted area. The supervisor cut in. That area is not restricted. Keller's breathing grew audible. She refused to comply. With what unlawful order, Director Brooks asked, meeting his eyes for the first time since the cuffs came off. Keller looked away. The man in the suit didn't raise his voice. This incident is being escalated. All footage is preserved. All statements will be taken. You are relieved of duty effective immediately pending investigation. Keller's knees buckled slightly. Not enough to fall, enough to show it. Danielle picked up her suitcase. Before she left, she turned back. You assumed I didn't belong, she said. You never once asked who I was. That assumption just ended your career. She walked out. The terminal parted for her this time. The story didn't end at the terminal. It detonated there. By the time Danielle Brooks was escorted back through security, the videos were already spreading. Shaky hands, clear audio. The moment the cuffs clicked, the word director caught cleanly on at least 3 recordings. By noon, the footage had crossed platforms. By nightfall, it had crossed borders. Officer orders black woman to leave terminal trended before anyone finished uploading the second angle. The department moved fast, faster than usual. Too fast to be coincidence. Within 48 hours, Officer Nathan Keller was placed on indefinite administrative leave, his badge confiscated, his access revoked. The internal investigation file opened with a red flag designation reserved for cases that could not be contained quietly. The footage made that decision for them. Civil rights attorneys didn't wait. Neither did advocacy groups. The language was precise. Unlawful detention. False arrest. Violation of Fourth Amendment rights. Equal protection violations. Abuse of authority under color of law. Danielle didn't give interviews. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke with brutal clarity. A formal complaint was filed in federal court within 2 weeks. It named Keller individually, his direct supervisor, and the Airport Security Authority for failure to train, failure to intervene, and a documented pattern of biased enforcement. The discovery phase was devastating. Internal emails surfaced, prior complaints dismissed as misunderstandings, training modules Keller had signed off on without completion, body camera footage from unrelated incidents showing similar escalation patterns. The narrative collapsed. Public pressure mounted. Protests formed at the airport. Lawmakers demanded briefings. The secretary issued a statement calling the incident unacceptable. Keller resigned before termination could be finalized. His resignation letter cited stress. The department declined to comment. The settlement came quietly. 8 figures. Non-disclosure clauses. Mandatory policy reforms. Independent oversight. Body camera audits. Bias intervention training tied to employment status. Danielle donated a portion of the settlement to legal defense funds. She returned to work the next morning. No ceremony, no press conference, just the work. Justice didn't roar. It documented. It archived. It changed procedures so the next person without a title might not need one to be believed. The terminal returned to routine. But Officer Keller never did. What happened in that terminal was not a misunderstanding. It was not a bad day. It was not poor communication. It was a constitutional failure. Under the Fourth Amendment, a person cannot be detained without reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity. Standing in a public terminal is not a crime. Waiting calmly is not a threat. Asking an officer to explain their authority is not obstruction. The moment Officer Keller ordered Danielle Brooks to leave without cause, the violation began. The moment he escalated that order into handcuffs, it became unlawful detention. There was no exigent circumstance, no credible threat, no refusal to identify. There was only an assumption followed by authority used to defend that assumption. This is how bias operates in real time. Not through slurs or shouting, but through shortcuts in judgment. The brain fills gaps with stereotypes and calls them instincts. When those instincts are reinforced by power and protected by silence, they become policy and practice. Psychologically, Keller never reevaluated his decision because doing so would have meant admitting error in front of witnesses. The presence of cameras made him double down, not slow down. That is a known phenomenon in authority behavior. Ego preservation overrides situational awareness. And that is why intervention matters. If you are ever in a similar situation, there are rules that protect you, even when it does not feel like it. Keep your hands visible. State clearly that you are not resisting. Ask for the legal basis of the order. Ask for a supervisor. Do not argue emotionally. Let the record show calm against escalation. If you are a witness, recording is often the most powerful form of accountability. Do not interfere physically. Capture audio. Capture commands. Capture timing. Evidence changes outcomes. This story resonates because Danielle Brooks had everything the system respects: title, authority, documentation, and it still was not enough to stop the moment from happening. It only ensured that the ending was different. Thousands of people experience similar treatment without cameras, without legal knowledge, without recourse. Their stories rarely trend. Their names are rarely known. So the real lesson is not that justice was served. It is that justice required proof, persistence, and pressure. The question is not whether Officer Keller was wrong. That is clear. The question is how many times this happens when no one is watching. What would you have done in that terminal? Comment your thoughts.
Welcome to a channel dedicated to the absolute truth. We believe in holding power to account by carefully examining the evidence. Opinions vary, but the records don't lie. Thank you so much for watching today.